Hello, friends, and let's get started.
My name is Owen, and I've been married to Skylar for 6 years. Like any couple, our relationship wasn't perfect. We had our disagreements, but I was always confident that our marriage was solid. I never thought her capable of betrayal. That Halloween, however, was the point of no return. The truth has a way of appearing at the most inopportune moments, shattering illusions in an instant. Skylar was looking forward to this evening. For weeks she'd been talking about the upcoming party, marking the date on her calendar, and reminding me every chance she got. Her friend Brianna, with whom they practiced yoga, was famous for her Halloween celebrations. Every time she held one, the house was a nightmarish attraction, with thick fog billowing over the floor, spooky sounds blasting from the speakers, and crowds of guests struggling to fit inside the walls of her home. "Are you ready yet?" Skylar's voice came from the bedroom as I struggled with the frayed laces on my pirate boots. My costume was unimpressive, to say the least. A classic pirate outfit with a plastic sword hanging from my belt and an eye patch that wouldn't stay in place. "Almost," I shouted back. "And you? Finishing up?" she said cheerfully. When Skylar finally emerged from the bedroom, I was literally speechless. She was dressed as a vampire queen, and it was a costume that left no room for fantasy. The black corset was tied around her figure, emphasizing every curve, and the leather skirt was so short that it looked like it would stop functioning. The dark makeup made her face mysterious, making her look predatory, bold, and undoubtedly seductive. "Wow," I said, torn between admiration and doubt. "You look amazing." Skylar smiled, turning on her axis and glancing at me slyly. "Not overdone?" I wanted to say yes, to say that I was uncomfortable with the idea of her showing up like that among a crowd of strangers. But I didn't want to seem like a jealous, over-controlling husband. "No," I answered with a strained smile. "You look great." By the time we reached Brianna's house, the party was in full swing. Humming music filled the space, mingling with the tart scent of alcohol and spicy, pumpkin-scented candles. There were people in all kinds of costumes, some laughing loudly, some dancing to the frenzied rhythms, some already having had a few too many drinks. Brianna met us at the entrance. Her zombie bride looked very convincing. Worn makeup, torn veil, disheveled hair. "Skylar! Owen! Owen! You're here!" she exclaimed joyfully, hugging my wife. Then her gaze slid over Skylar's outfit, and a sly smile appeared on Brianna's face. "My girl, you are the star of this evening." Skylar laughed, waving her hand flirtatiously. "Oh, come on." I only smiled strainedly, staying close to my wife as we made our way through the crowd. The party was sheer chaos. Music drowned out the voices, drinks flowed, people laughed carelessly like there was no tomorrow. Skylar seemed to blossom among the guests. She chatted with everyone, moving from one company to the next with ease, as if everyone here was an old acquaintance. I stayed close to her, watching her relax with each new cocktail. As time went on, her laughter grew louder, her gestures bolder, and her hands lingered on the shoulders and arms of her companions a little longer than they should have. At some point I lost her. A sense of unease squeezed my chest as I wandered the rooms, trying to find her among dozens of people. "Brianna, have you seen Skylar?" I asked when I spotted the party hostess near the bar. She looked up, shrugged her shoulders, and tossed it back with a slight chuckle. "Relax, Owen. She's just having fun. Let her enjoy the evening." There was a note of irritated disdain in her voice, but I didn't argue. Finally, after a few minutes of searching, I found Skylar on the back patio. She was talking animatedly with a man in a werewolf costume. He was tall, solidly built, with a confident posture that I immediately disliked. "There you are," I said, walking toward them. Skylar turned around, her smile too wide, too forced. "Oh, Owen. Meet Randall. He works with Brianna." "Nice to meet you," I said briefly, extending my hand. Randall shook it firmly, confidently, and the smirk that flickered across his face only made me more irritated. "We were just discussing that haunted house Randall went to last week," Skylar explained mundanely. "Very interesting," I said dryly, trying to keep my emotions in check. Skylar glanced at me, her smile faltering for a second. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," I answered, but my voice gave away the opposite. It's just time to go back inside. She hesitated, but after a moment she followed me. For the next few hours she stayed close, but something had changed. Physically she was here, but in her thoughts she was clearly hovering somewhere far away. Around midnight, Brianna announced that it was time to play truth or dare. I wasn't particularly inspired by the idea, but Skylar begged me to join in with such enthusiasm that I couldn't refuse. The game quickly gained momentum. Drinks flowed, unexpected confessions were made, and the challenges became more and more absurd. Finally, it was Skylar's turn. Truth or action? Brianna asked, squinting slyly. Action, Skylar answered confidently. Brianna smirked. I challenge you to kiss the most attractive man in this room. The room exploded with whistles and cheers of approval. My heart thudded deafeningly. I looked at Skylar, hoping she'd just turn to me, smack her lips, and laugh, reducing it to a joke. But instead, she turned to Randall. Before I even realized what was happening, her lips touched his. It wasn't a light, innocent kiss. It was slow, deliberate, and overly intimate. The crowd cheered enthusiastically. Applause erupted. And I froze, feeling everything inside clench with an icy wave. When Skylar pulled away, her gaze met mine, and I couldn't make out what I was reading in it. Owen, it's just a game, she said quietly, as if hoping those words would be enough. I laughed briefly, but there was no mirth in that laugh, more of a bitter realization. Muttering something about needing some fresh air, I turned around and walked outside. The cold night wind instantly burned my skin, but I barely noticed it, the storm raging inside me. Anger, confusion, humiliation all mixed together in a chaotic maelstrom that threatened to erupt. A few minutes later, the door creaked open behind me, and Skylar came out onto the porch. She stopped on the threshold, hesitating before she spoke. Are you okay? Her voice was cautious, like she was afraid of my answer. I turned around sharply. No, I'm not okay. What the hell was that? It's just a challenge, she hastily objected, defending herself. Everyone was watching. I didn't want to make a scene. I grinned bitterly. Well, congratulations. You made a scene after all. She tried to take my hand, but I yanked it away, as if her touch would only make it hurt more. You just kissed another man in front of everyone, Skylar. It meant nothing. She raised her voice, her tone no longer pleading, but defiant. Before I could respond, Randall appeared in the doorway. Is everything all right? He asked with exaggerated concern, as if he were genuinely worried. I shot him an icy glare. No, it's not, I said, stepping forward. And it's none of your business. Owen, stop it. Skylar stepped in, blocking my path. Randall threw up his hands in a feigned gesture of innocence. I didn't mean to interrupt, he mumbled, and he took a couple steps back and disappeared into the house. I shook my head, disbelieving what was happening. This is unbelievable, I mumbled, feeling the rage boiling up inside me. You're exaggerating, she countered sharply. It's a party, Owen? You're just jealous. I clenched my jaw, grinning with the corner of my lips. I'm going home. Skylar threw her head up sharply, her eyes widening. What? Why? Because I'm tired of pretending everything's okay, I said, barely able to contain my bitterness. You're being stupid, she said, crossing her arms over her chest. It's just a stupid game, but I didn't care anymore. I turned and headed for the exit, leaving her standing there on the cold porch, still desperately trying to justify what couldn't be justified. Pack your things, I said without turning around, my voice sharp as a lash. We're leaving. I gestured toward the car, expecting her to follow me. But Skylar didn't move. She stood straight, her gaze hard and her expression stubborn. No, she said clearly. I'm staying. My fingers clenched into a fist. I took a deep breath before I spoke, my voice low and threatening now. Skylar, if you don't come with me now, it's over between us. She squinted at me, her chin jutting upward, defiance flashing in her eyes. You don't own me, and you don't own me, Owen. If you want to go, go. But I'm staying. I stared at her, feeling the weight of her words settling inside me. So that's it? I whispered. She didn't say a word, and that silence tore at me more than any excuse. Her silence hurt me more than any words she could have said. My voice sounded icy, detached. Suit yourself. I turned around and, without another word, headed for the car. My legs felt like lead, but I kept walking. I gripped the steering wheel, my hands shaking. A hurricane of emotions raged inside me: rage, betrayal, devastation. Everything mixed into a chaotic maelstrom, giving me no chance for respite. The whole ride home was a blurry blur. When I finally arrived at the house, the silence fell on me with a heavy weight. It was suffocating, crushing, mocking. The walls seemed to mock me, reminding me of what had just happened. The phone beeped sharply, snapping me out of my daze. An unfamiliar number popped up on the screen. I hesitated for a moment, but answered it. Hello? There was a tense voice on the other end of the line. Hey, Owen, this is Dylan, Brianna's boyfriend. We met at the party tonight. I rubbed the bridge of my nose tiredly. Yeah, I remember. Did something happen? He exhaled noisily, like he was working up the courage. Look, I don't know how to say this, but you need to know. Skylar's upstairs right now, with Randall, in one of the bedrooms. The world around me shook like the ground was shifting out from under my feet. My chest tightened, and my stomach twisted into a painful knot. I struggled to get it out. Are you sure? But in the back of my mind, I already knew the answer. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. But you had to know that. I didn't answer. I just silently disconnected the call. The phone slipped from my trembling hand to the table. My gaze fell on the framed photograph on the shelf opposite. Skylar and I, young, smiling, captured in a moment that once seemed like an eternity. Something inside me snapped. I abruptly grabbed the frame and threw it violently against the wall. There was a clinking sound of shattered glass, but even that sound couldn't dull the pain inside. On automatic, I made my way to the closet and pulled out the folder containing our marriage papers. The papers that once symbolized promises and vows were now just empty words. I began tearing them up one by one. The silence in the house was becoming unbearable, as if it were pressing in on me, suffocating me, stifling me from breathing. Finally, I pulled out my suitcase, haphazardly throwing a few things into it. I needed to leave. Immediately. The hotel I went to was cold and personal, but at least it didn't have her in it. There were no memories of her, and that was enough. I sat down at a small desk in the corner of the room, opened my laptop, and logged into our shared bank account. A few clicks, and all the money was in my personal account. She didn't deserve a dime after what she'd done. The night passed without sleep. I lay on the stiff hotel mattress, staring at the ceiling while the same scenes endlessly replayed in my head. Anger, distrust, pain, a vicious cycle that kept me awake. By morning, the phone began to vibrate nonstop. Skylar. I didn't answer at first, but I finally picked up. What? My voice sounded hollow, distant. Owen, where are you? I could hear the panic in her voice. I woke up, and you were gone. What's going on? I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Are you really asking? I said wryly. You stayed at the party. I warned you what that meant. And then you went upstairs with Randall. There was a heavy silence on the other end of the line. Finally, she spoke, but her voice was quiet, barely audible. Who told you? What difference does it make? I cut her off coldly. The truth remains the truth. Owen, please. Her voice trembled. I was wrong. I love you. We can fix this. No, I said it calmly, but those two letters were everything. The end point. You ruined everything, Skylar. Now you have to live with it. I ended the call without even giving her a chance to say anything else. A few days later, I went back to the house to pick up the rest of my things. But that house didn't feel like mine anymore. It was empty, cold, permeated with echoes of betrayal. As I drove up to the house, I noticed a car parked in the driveway that I didn't recognize. My chest tightened unpleasantly. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing in the silence. And then the sounds, muffled, indistinct. But I already knew what it was. Dazed, I walked slowly up the stairs. Each step was heavy, as if my legs were filled with lead. I pushed open the door, and there they were, Skylar and Randall. In our bed. What the hell is going on here? My voice shook with rage, icy pain in every word. Skylar froze. Her face went pale, her eyes widened with shock. Owen, I didn't want you to see this. My hands clenched into fists, My breathing hitched, my vision blurred with anger. "This is your mistake?" I growled, barely able to contain myself. "This is your regret." Randall frantically pulled the blanket over himself, his face a mixture of panic and embarrassment. But I didn't even give him a glance. I silently pulled out my phone and clicked on the camera. I lifted the phone and snapped a few pictures. Cold, merciless proof of her betrayal. Snapshots that couldn't be disputed. "You have 2 days," I said. My voice was chilling, smooth, honed to impeccable clarity. 2 days to pack your things and leave. If you're here any longer, I'll call the police. I will not allow you to humiliate me further in my own home." Skylar looked at me with her eyes wide open. Guilt, shock, pleading, but I didn't care anymore. Everything I'd once felt for her, love, trust, affection, was gone. "I'll file for a restraining order if I have to," I said sharply before I turned and walked out of the room. Leaving her behind. Leaving him behind. The divorce was quick, but the pain remained. Skylar packed her things, taking only what belonged to her. Everything else, all the memories, all the history we'd built together, was left here, shattered, devastated, useless. I cut her out of my life, deleted every photo, got rid of every reminder. But time doesn't heal everything. Some wounds don't heal. They remain, becoming scars. Her betrayal showed me a truth I'll never forget. Love is not enough. Without trust, loyalty, and respect, it's just an illusion. Every Halloween, I remember the night my world fell apart. But it's also the night I found the strength to walk away from someone who was never worthy of me. And for that, I'm grateful. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.